All right, so it's another episode of the Uncivilized Arts podcast. I'm your host, Bumi Hazan, but I go by Bandit Haze in our online space. And today, my guest is Jessen Aroonachellum. Actually, no. Let me not say anything. Let me let you tell the people who you is because you do a lot of stuff.
Hey, Boom, it's a pleasure to join you and to see you after so many years. I am an actor. Um, I've worked on many projects. As this is very much a sort of geek type podcast, I worked on one of the Star Wars films, Solo. There's a
Okay.
background that was
Mm.
really amazing. Did some background work on Justice League. That was pretty cool. And I am also a director and film producer, film director and film producer now. So I recently released one of my films online this week. So that was really really cool. This is something I've been working on for a few years, and it was great to finally put it out there in the world. Yes, I've done plays in London. As is the topic, it was science fiction plays that I did, so science theatre. Now, just a little history. I discovered this when I was doing the play. So it's from the Stars and Mars Theatre Company by Susan Gray, and she wrote these plays. And what I discovered was that science theatre was precursor to radio plays, where there used to be a lot of science fiction back in the day. And when TV came on, so you had all the Flash Gordon series and the radio, and then it transfers to TV, then into film, and blah blah. But I never knew there was actual theatre. So Stars and Mars kind of brought that back in a sense. And I did a couple plays, one playing an artificial intelligence, an AI in a cloud sort of thing, and that was really amazing. So that was a great experience doing that. And I've worked on commercials. Probably the most highlighted one was a few years ago, um, just before the pandemic. It was a Love Island commercial with Caroline Flack, late Caroline Flack.
Yeah.
It was for Uber Eats. And I
Yeah.
play a sort of Uber Eats kind of delivery guy called Ravi. And if you remember that, you might recognize my face from that. So I've done a few things. As Mimi said, I've done quite other stuff as well.
Awesome. Actually, real quick, you mentioned about doing a play and AI, and AI seems to be big in the news right now. Do you have any thoughts on AI and this whole thing about? Do you think like AI could ever replace humans in creativity, as seems to be what's being pushed right now?
Well, one of my favorite films is Terminator films.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
as a fellow geek, I think artificial intelligence is remarkable. And I've as yeah, as you clearly seen, the intelligence is going up and the advancement. But I think as human beings, we shouldn't overstep the mark. It's this old saying: you have the knowledge, but do you have the
Mm,
wisdom to use it?
right.
That's the
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
it's great to have these information and like if you go back, it's funny. It's like being an old man I am, working with younger people at work, and they're on their phones and such, and you talk, and then like how it was when you had the Windows 95 or
Mm, yeah.
or the
Yep.
Archimedes and stuff like that, and how the technologies advanced so much. And when you watch sci-fi like Star Trek and everything else like that, the artificial intelligence and that, I think it's brilliant, but there has to be protocols so it doesn't wander off in a dangerous
mm,
direction.
yeah.
It's
No.
useful, but you have to be. It's like Aramos free codes of for robots. There has to be a set of rules. Otherwise, it could go very dangerously or it can be very good.
Yeah, no, indeed, I'd agree with that thing. Like I'm a big fan of technology and have been
Mm.
for many years, but I always feel like technology is at its best when it's serving people, when it's trying to help people.
Yes.
When it tries to replace people, that's where I think it fails. And in
Mm.
particular with the AI arts that's kind of going around, that it produced some really cool looking
Hmm.
images. I ain't trying to say it looks rubbish. It doesn't look rubbish. It looks great. When you see
Yes.
the images it produces, but at the same time, it's not art, because all it's
Mm.
really doing is like collating various images and data and stuff and producing something based on things that already exist. When you go to an artist, they can put themselves into it. And I think for me, that's always going to be the fundamental difference between what a computer could produce. Even though it could produce something that looks great, it's never going
Mm.
to produce actual art. But the question I think really is gonna have to be answered is, how much nuance are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of convenience?
Mm.
And I think
Well,
human history,
yeah, because
yeah,
like
that's where it kind of
if,
gets like,
if we go back to um, so the positives of that, say with I would say Star Trek, where you have the technology that's useful, and with say Data and an android, who wants to become a human, and you see the positive side of that, and then you see the negative side of say Terminator with Skynet taking over and
yeah,
creating the Terminator robots kind of thing. You, it is interesting where you. It's crazy where you watch these things or cartoons or anime and stuff like that, where you got robots doing the shopping and stuff like that, and like there's some things I've seen, especially in Japan and stuff like that. It's like creeping on. It's like Battlestar Galactica is another great example. The newer edition, which was like 20 years ago now. So I honestly feel that technology has to go forward. We always have to improve, but it
yeah,
can't be
yeah,
in the sacrifice of us kind of thing.
yeah. Checks and balances, and
Yeah.
I, I guess
Does that
that's
make sense?
yeah, and I guess we have to, as it goes forward, as technology improves, and I guess like with anything, as humanity and
Mm,
civilizations move forward, there's always going to be newer questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves that we
mm.
may never asked before, or maybe ask ourselves old questions but in different ways, and trying to figure out the morality within it all
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that could be well, we'll see what happens in the future.
You started
But
light, did I just say? You started light.
well, it's how we do. It's how we do. But yeah, from the future to the past. Nice segue, I think. Yeah, let's just learn a little bit about yourself. So, like, you mentioned you're into geeky stuff. I know you're into geeky stuff. We're all into geeky stuff on this platform here. But for yourself, like, when did you kind of start to realize that you were into like movies and sci-fi and
Um,
all these sorts of things, like way more than like say the average person?
so my earliest memories is Star Wars or Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
and Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
major influences in my life, massive influence, even now. And I remember as probably a toddler kid going into a shop with my older cousin and seeing a VHS. Now, kids, Google VHS. It's a little black box you used to put in, and it was really
Yeah.
good back in the day. And
VHS was the bomb back in the day.
yeah,
Like
you
between
know,
that and Betamax, VHS was king.
paybacks. Yeah, and later on you had Laserdisc.
Yeah.
Kids, just Google it, you'll find out, or ask your parents. But I remember seeing the cover of the video because my cousin asked me, "What do I want?" I said, that one." And I probably saw the Ewoks or the lightsabers, or just something about it just drew me. And I watched it, and I think I watched this trilogy backwards. So I saw Return of the Jedi, Empire, and Star Wars. It still made
Yeah.
sense to me back then. I was just
I mean,
like,
considering the way they were released, yeah,
yeah,
it's fine.
the,
It's fine.
and yeah, I just like had all the toys. the figures, pretty much like knew all the characters. Just it's just like had everything grown up, and that was like a major influence. And like I said, with Michael Jackson, listening to his music and his videos and everything else, that Star Wars. When I got older, there was like the making of videos they had.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it showed you how they. One I got was for Return of the Jedi, and what blew my mind was that Yoda was Miss Piggy.
Oh yeah, Frank Oz. That's
The
right. Yeah.
Frank Oz.
Yeah.
So the voice of Yoda
Yeah.
was Miss. And when I saw it, I was like, "What?" And they showed how they made the films. Like this is what camera is, and this is how they they focus, and this is how they did special effects with blue screen and using computers, and
Mm.
actors are learning their lines and doing their scenes, and it's like this is amazing. And that's what made me fall in love with cinema. It was just seeing that, and when I got older, and that cinema, and getting that age where I'm still like was watching the Star Trek films on TV, and like all the cartoons back in the day, all the classic '80s cartoons,
Mm.
and Knight Rider, like getting to that. The '80s had some great stuff,
Oh, for sure. I
So,
mean, Knight Rider, 18, Thundercats, but
yeah,
Mask,
yeah,
Transformers,
yeah,
man, He-Man,
yeah.
She-Ra, bro. Yeah, 80s was lit for
Shira
TV.
was my first crush.
She-Ra, yeah, She-Ra. Was it Princess? Oh, Princess Tia? No,
Yeah,
Tia? Is that
yeah,
right?
Tia, yeah,
Princess Tia.
yeah.
And she was He-Man's cousin or something.
It was, yeah, I remember, and yeah, so it was that sort of like potpourri of culture of '80s and stuff like that just made me fall in love,
Mm.
and that's why the geekiness. And as to I got my Star Wars T-shirt in honor
Oh, nice.
of this, so it's like the original Star Wars cover T-shirt. So I thought I'd wear something special for today.
So,
I,
like, oh, sorry, no, I thought you.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so with Star Wars, so yeah, been around since like the late 70s, of course, and
Mm,
you say you were watching it as a kid, and like myself as well. Like I remember watching Star Wars. Oh, well, I think I remember like watching something on TV or something, but I definitely remember like all the hype and the buzz, and
mm.
being excited about the new toys and things like that. But Star Wars, back then is very different to the more recent Star Wars now.
Yeah,
And I think for myself, I've kind of had to come to terms with the fact that Star Wars just isn't really being made for me anymore,
yeah,
And it was a bit of a journey, but really felt like I had to come to that kind of acceptance. I think once I did, I wouldn't say I think they're great. I mean, they're well, they are what they are, but I feel like I could see them from what they are more, and that I can accept that they're just
mm,
not being made for me.
yeah.
For yourself, like how do you feel about the newer Star Wars movies, like say
You
from the
know what?
prequels to the Disney ones?
I said this. It's interesting because watch the originals back then, and then 1999, Phantom Menace, a new Star Wars film.
Yeah,
Oh my god, double lightsabers!
yeah.
Ah, and it's like this is so cool. And in that time period, I read all the books. So
All right, the old
from
school books. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so it's called the Class of Legends now.
yeah.
So in I think it was 91 or 92, Heir to the Empire came out, which was Timothy Zahn, which is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. That set off all the books, and then Dark Horse Comics had Dark Empire, which was a classic if you get a chance to read that, and they set off all the comics that came out. So you had material, but you didn't have physical, apart from the droid cartoons, the Ewok movies, the Ewok cartoons back in the day. But this was a proper feature film. I've had this discussion with many of my fellow geeks and Star Wars fans. That generation who watched it, because there's a generation that my generation watched it. A lot of them didn't like it, didn't like Jar Jar. I'm gonna have to be honest. I know with this flag, we're dying on the hill. think Jar Jar is great, because if you see it as a comic character for kids,
Yeah.
it's there. There's also that theory that he's meant to be a Sith Lord,
Oh, that's all that. Yeah,
which I
yeah.
kind of like.
I hope that's true. I mean, it's probably not, but I hope that
Yeah,
comes true.
you know. And so that generation loves it now. That generation is older, having kids, and they're showing love to, like, so recently, like Hayden Christian
Mm.
and Ahmet Bess, who was slated by
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
generation of fans, and those films were great. But as much as I love George Lucas is a brilliant director, visual director, but he's not great at scripts. The scripts were sort of the style of the 1920s, 30s serial film, and he's a filmmaker, but he's not an actor. He's not a director's actor.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't. He just like does everything post. So those films are great. If you look at it as a storyline, they're great.
Yeah.
But some aspects, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite. And then you go to this generation. I have issues. I've said this. I enjoy the films like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. I have issues with it because I've read the books and I kind of like those stories,
Yeah.
but I can see what the influence is from the younger generation, seeing young girls in Rey costumes, or young black kids wearing like Finn and stuff like that, and being influenced. Because you got to remember, George Lucas said this is a kid's
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
essentially. So we're grown ups, and it is like we got Mandalorian, we got all these other great spin-off series, which is a bit more older for us, older generation.
Mm.
But essentially, these are the stories of Star Wars is about good and evil, about the dark side and the light side,
Yeah.
and what path you take. That's the core. If you got to remember, and he's teaching kids the moralities and what's right and wrong, and what path you take.
Mm.
So I see it from that.
Yeah, no, no, certainly, and I think that's a kind of part of it as well. You, like you mentioned that the films are effective; they are made to appeal to children. Of course, that doesn't mean that grown-ups can't watch them,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
fundamentally, they're being made for younger audiences, and that's as how they were back in sort of 70s, 80s. You know how it was in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, and how it is now. But just as you're saying that the people who are kids like us, we were kids back in the day, we're grown ups now. Like we don't see the world the same way. We see things differently. So of course we're
Mm.
not going to relate to Star Wars in the same way we did as we did in the 80s.
Mm.
That's to be expected. And the truth is, it's like, I remember when the prequels came out. Like, yeah, I feel like everybody was just so excited for like a new Star Wars movie,
Mm.
and the trailer looked awesome, and everybody super excited about it. And you get to cinema, and you're hyped, and you watch this movie, and just kind of like, huh? And there's a few cool scenes, but huh?
Yeah.
And then
Like Anakin is a spoiled brat. It's like
right,
what's going on?
and
And he's like,
but I'm watching them again recently in the last maybe year or so, and
mm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still feel like, yeah, from filmmakers, from storytelling and filmmaker point of
Mm.
view, and you can always here's the thing. Nitpicking Star Wars is one of my favorite things to do these days. It really is, because there's so many inconsistencies and so many plot holes. So you can always point those things out. But yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, fundamentally they do tell a consistent story from beginning,
Mm.
middle, and end.
Mm.
And I think looking back at it with once the hype has all died down, you can kind of
Mm.
appreciate it for what they did. And the fact is, like, Star Wars was so massive, there was no way they were going to please everybody at the time. The
Yeah.
hype was just so intense that no matter what they did, people were going to be disappointed. It was never going to live up to that kind of hype. So,
Exactly. Exactly. You're gonna disappoint people, and I see some of the comments on this lies a problem because social media, and the problem that, like, say Ahmet Best and stuff like that, who had a lot of bad, like,
mm,
fan reaction, and recently with the recent films where, yeah, the dark side of the fandom, like especially with a lot of the, I can't remember the some of the actors' name, but the sort of the Asian character in Last Jedi was getting a lot
Oh
of hate.
yeah,
Yeah,
Rose
I can't.
Tico. I know.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a character name. I'm blanking on her real
Rose
name
is
right
it?
now.
Yeah,
Kelly Marie Tran. Yeah,
that's it.
Kelly Marie Tran. Yeah.
Um, racial, abuse, and then I can't remember a lot of the actor's name, but
Mm.
in Obi-Wan, the dark side,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, and stuff like that, which to me maybe is my optimistic side of me. I always think you should take the positives from these series and learn about light side, dark side. When you criticize in a sense and judge somebody, you go into the dark side.
yeah,
When you go to like criticize, you can like in the business. We actors, we gotta take criticism. You have to have thick skin. Criticize us for our performance, but don't then just say X, Y, Z because
yeah.
of race or gender or
Yeah, and a lot of that just gets super ridiculous, especially when it's so clear that the only reason they're doing it is because they don't want to see, well, effectively a non-white character in a
Mm,
role, and it's exhausting because it's like
yeah,
it's not new, you know. It's
no,
just been around, and you'd think like by now people be over it, but I guess there's
yeah,
always going to be a new generation of ignorant people to come
yeah,
along and act like everything's changing. It's like people have been making movies and for a
yeah,
long time. This
yeah,
and Star Wars even from the beginning has never been you know for lack of a better phrase, a white man show.
mm,
It's never been that. It's always
no,
been. I mean, granted, back in the 70s and 80s, things were definitely a little bit different back then, right?
yeah,
But it
yeah,
was never the message of it, and so yeah, the way people are now, like they say a black guy in a role, and they start getting mad, or a black lady in a
mm,
role, they start getting mad, or an Asian lady in a role, they start getting mad.
yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Think
It's
about,
just
I mean,
ridiculous.
one of the coolest characters in science fiction, science opera is Lando Calrissian. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
come on, Billy D. Williams is smoother than butter. Do you know what I
For real.
mean?
Hey, listen,
Yeah,
I have a few fears about about Lando Calrissian and the fact and the reason why there's so many orphans in the Star Wars universe. So I'm just saying, he's a smooth dude. He's a
yeah,
smooth
broly,
dude. Bunch of people
broly.
don't know who their daddies are as well. So I'm just saying.
Oh, that's that. Oh man, there's talks about doing a spin-off, so maybe they could address to that. Um, yeah. So, like I said, Star Wars is definitely. I do enjoy the new series and stuff. I do have issues. It's not like blind. Everything's amazing.
Mm,
No, there's been times where I watched some of the series and it's like, oh really? Okay, okay. Didn't expect that or that kind of stuff. But like, I still get excited when I hear about new films, new projects.
yeah.
Still like get chills when I listen to John Williams,
That
soundtracks
score. Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. It's still my first love. So yeah, definitely.
All right. So with your own acting, then
Mm,
how did you get into that in terms of like how did you kind of decide? I mean, you mentioned that you fell in love with cinema, when you saw sort
mm.
of behind the scenes stuff. But at what point did you decide that okay, I want to be an actor, and how do you go about doing that?
Okay, so when I was a kid, many moons ago, well, not maybe not, but when I was a kid,
A
I
couple of
said I
weeks
want to be
back
an
then.
act. Yeah, I want to be an actor. I want to be this. I want to be that, and everything else. But always an actor. There was always an actor in there, and I did when I was at school. When I was younger, I used to get bullied quite a lot. And the only time I ever felt really happy at school was when I was at doing drama and doing like plays or shows.
Mm,
And there's always one point where I remember there's this kid who was laughing at me on stage. And I always remember thinking, if the roles were reversed, you wouldn't be able to do this.
Mm.
You just froze. But I love being on stage. I feel alive when I'm on stage,
Yeah.
and it was just it. Like I said, it's like because going back to other things I like Batman. Batman is a massive thing for me. The thing about Bruce Wayne um, improving himself to be better, like that inspired me. Just not just the Batarang and stuff, but he was like he wants to be better. So I used to read a lot, even though I'm dyslexic. Love reading, and learning things and watching documentaries and everything else. And through the acting, what I end up watching, like I said about the makings of, on a Saturday afternoon, they used to have the makings of all these films. So I used to just watch it. It was like half an hour on a Saturday afternoon. I used to watch them. I used to tape them back in the day and just watch them and stuff like that. And when I was at school, I did all these school shows. Um, I was the Ghost of Christmas Present. I remember because I couldn't learn my lines because of my dyslexia. So there's our scenes were my scene was like one of the longest. Then my English teacher got both my English got helped me, and I learned a way to. So I learned how to learn my lines was to
Mm.
recall myself, which I still do. Recall myself and listen to myself and read it out loud. And then that scene ended up being one of the shortest because I knew my lines and everyone else didn't know theirs. So it was quite funny. But I just loved doing that. And then through that, I went to college. So I grew up in Lincolnshire, and um, so I born in like Essex, and then we moved to Lincolnshire, and went and studied at college at Boston College, and did 3 years there, and just learned the craft, you know, and watched like documentaries, did shows, did everything. Just was there for 3 years. Learned. Then I studied a bit more, and then I went to London and did some more training. And then it's only in the last 10 odd years that I kind of got back into acting because I was working a lot of that time. I was working in the West End in the front of house theatre, and I kind of went back into acting because I still wanted to be an actor, you
Mm.
know, and I still did it. So all the inspiration of it's funny the geekness for me kind of helped inspire my acting as well because I want to be in Star Trek, I want to be in Star Wars, I want to be
Yeah.
you know I want to be Batman or something like that. That's kind of, I want to be in those sci-fi superhero films, and as well as Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare and plays and everything else. Well, maybe not musicals because if I start singing, everyone will know where the exit signs are. Kind of thing. But yeah, I just loved. I still love theatre, and when working at the front of house in the West End, I made some great friends. I saw some great shows, and I still loved it. You know, so it's kind of interesting, like what inspired me, not geekness.
Mm.
It's kind of I took a very different path to this career because a lot of people go to drama school and then go into it. There's people I've known who went from drama school, did it for a few years. It's a very difficult career. It's not easy. Everyone will
Mm.
say, "Oh, look at this actor, millionaires and stuff like."
Yeah.
It's only a small fraction. It's like 1% are
Yeah.
the top earners.
Yeah. If even that
Everyone
much.
is, yeah. It's you're hustling. You are constantly working. If you're not doing a job, you're working as doing like hospitality or any other industry to make because you need to make money. You need
Yeah.
to. You can't just be like I'm a struggling actor. You need to, in reality, you need to do the hustle and do work and do everything else whilst still have that passion, you
Mm.
know, to do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something that I think like there's I mean it's probably a bit more known now, but certainly there's a lot of people that don't fully realize that, being an actor or a musician or any kind of say creative
Mm.
artistic
Mm.
field, you hear about, the Beyoncés, of course, and you hear
Yeah,
about, the Tom Cruises and the
yeah,
Will Smiths and all the big names, and
yeah,
you kind of get sort of conditioned to thinking that's every actor, that's every musician, that's every
mhm.
star, but that's just it. That's that small percentage of
Yeah,
people,
and and
that you hear about.
yeah, and sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry, sorry, it's
The
your time.
hey, the when it comes to those artists, they have struggled to get to
Mm,
that point as well. It's not always been easy. Like I'm starting to read Will Smith's autobiography. It's quite interesting so far. It's about one thing I've always said this, and I say this to other people in like younger people in my profession, my field. Your reputation precedes you.
mm,
If you are um, arrogant or rude and stuff like that, people will find out. People will
yeah,
listen, and people will just it spreads. So just be a nice person on set. Know your mark. So a mark is where you stand. So those who are not familiar with technical terms, got the camera, and it can take some from. So the frame, say the frame's this, like this, right? So there's only a certain amount of places you can be, and your mark might be here. So you need to know where you are meant to be. So the camera is where it needs to be,
yeah,
right? So you need, just know your mark, know your lines, you know, and just be nice, you know. So yeah, it's that kind of field. So yes, there's a lot of successful actors and doing a really good job, but there's also those who are still doing plays and stuff like that, and at the same time hustling
yeah,
to do to till the next gig comes along. So it's I can see when people like will see, oh, you got premieres and limousines and you know loads of fancy dresses and everything else or suits, and it can be like that, but also it is there's the other side, the hard work. Sometimes being on set, you can be on. I've been on set 15 hours, 16 hours.
mm,
Some
yeah,
as you and I both experienced, we had to be when I had to be on Star Wars. I had to be there 4 o'clock in the morning, so I had to get up at 1, get the bus to get to the location for the for the other bus to take us to the film studio,
yeah.
and then we finish maybe like 6 in the afternoon and do it all over again the next day. So it's it can be long days.
Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah, yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Just like surviving on like 3 4 hours sleep or something at
Yeah.
like every night, and you just get into
Mm.
set, and like they go through hair and makeup
Yeah.
and and costume and every
Hmm.
day, and you just like just where's the coffee, you just
Yeah.
it's just yeah, yeah, for sure. I did
Yeah.
I was in on a set for Spectre, James Bond Spectre,
Oh, amazing.
and it was cool because it was a 5 day one, that one, at least my
Mm.
bit was 5 days,
Mm.
but yeah, it was like the same thing, just like getting up early, being there, and of course
Yeah.
when I'm doing extras work, so it's like just a lot of waiting around,
Yeah.
and but what the cool thing about it is that like when you're just waiting, they don't really mind too much what you do, so we're asleep most of the time,
Yeah.
and it's like you just get paid to sleep and eat, and it's like, oh, I could do this. I can do this.
Yeah. You see, like people like just like they're like, all right, yeah, cool, you get ready, cool, kind of thing. So I mean, it is a hard work, but like when you're performing, when you're in the audience and you feel that response when you do a joke and they
Mm,
laugh, or when you do a song and dance number and people clapping, or you can just feel that energy,
Yeah.
or when you're doing this powerful monologue and there is the audience, everyone's quiet because they want to hear what you have to say,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like that feeling you have. But yeah, it's a great, for me. It's something I always want to do, and like I said, I've gone into film directing, which is something else I wanted to do, and producing, and being in that field, you know.
Yeah, I do want to talk to you about the film director. Now, before that, though, because you did mention about sort of being on stage and that feeling you get. And I think I know what you mean, because I mean, I used to do a lot of spoken word, and I think you've done some spoken word as well.
Yeah,
And that
good
kind of
research.
feeling you. Sorry.
Good research.
Oh, right. Well, I know. I try, man. I try. But yeah, that feeling you get when you're on stage and you're speaking and you're doing your bit, and like you said, like everybody's just like kind of listening, and it's one of those realizations for me that there's very few moments or times in your life where you can do that.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you're having conversations or you're speaking with people, vast majority of the time nobody's really listening to you. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. And but it's like one of the times we could just like I could actually just talk and just say what I want to say, and they might like it, they might not like it, but you can get to say it, and it could just be out, and you can just express however you feel you need to in that moment. And yeah, there's definitely a powerful kind of feeling you get from that. Potentially addictive feeling you can get from that as well. But yeah, no, I think what you mean about that kind of stage feeling, just
Mm.
that yeah, it's a good feeling when you know that you can just be there and just
Yeah.
do what you need to do and just say what you
Yeah.
want to say. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
It is a cool feeling, sort of thing. And it's the same when I'm on set, when I'm acting. It's like I kind of use the crew as an audience, maybe just in the sense of seeing how they react. Also, one of the biggest things, for acting is to listen.
Mm,
What's the other actor saying? Don't just remember your lines. Know what the other person,
yeah,
you know, because it's the responses. Theatre is the oldest profession. There's another one, but I won't talk what that
no.
is. But
Well,
it's
I
the
mean, yeah,
oldest
it's.
profession, right?
I mean, to be fair,
And
they're kind of the same thing. So,
no comment,
kind.
no comment, no comment. Um, and it's all about, it's this. I always say that we are storytellers
Yeah,
as well as artists. We're storytellers, and that goes all the way back to the old days when the campfire and the person's telling a story. You know, theatre goes back. Performance goes back thousands of years. It's our most common expression to explain something.
yeah,
You know, the giant lizard attacked me down there. Kind of
yeah.
thing. Oh, how do I tell the woman I love her? Kind of thing. I will slay that giant lizard to show her how much I love her. That kind of thing. So it goes back all those years, and if you look at all the different cultures, every culture has it. If you look back in their history, there's always something of a performance, something of acting, singing, dance. Dance is like the early expression, of when we heard the beat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
Just
it's
movements. Yeah,
rooted. Yeah. So it's like when I'm an audience, when you're an audience member and you're in the theatre, it's that place, and it goes back from the little campfire storytelling to the big cinemas or the big theaters, you know,
yeah,
or the even the Roman amphitheaters, you know,
Mm.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's
no, do
people want to be, you're not entertained, you know. Yeah. So it's that it goes back that connection, and with like I said, technology, with like we go back to the beginning with AI and what they that can do, that potential they can do with that. Um, I think that it's an expression. Best way to say it. It's an
yeah.
expression. You
No,
know.
indeed, and I don't really thought about it in that way, but yeah, just the idea of, I mean, if you go back to the earliest people, very first people on the earth, they had to
Mm,
figure out ways to explain things, and you figure out different ways to explain things, and you kind of realize that how you explain it matters. So it's all expression.
mm,
Go back to, like, I don't know, like the caveman
yeah.
paintings. Like you trying to create a story of something, and you're using
Mm,
these images to
yeah.
express yourself. There's always been this thing. Of course, the word theatre or acting and things like that
Mm,
maybe haven't always been around, but the fundamental principles of what you do, like telling a story, explaining an idea, expressing yourself in some way, that
mm,
goes back, yeah, to the earliest of people,
yeah.
so yeah, I haven't thought about it in that way, but yeah, that's yeah.
It's like we go back to the AI and creating art, and some of it is
Mm,
beautiful, but only Michelangelo could have seen in that slab of marble David.
yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like he's one of my favorite. Da Vinci is one of my favorites. I'm not going through all the turtles, but
yeah, yeah. There's a few.
it's like
There's a few.
um, like Da Vinci and his. I mean, his imagination. He was hundreds of years ahead of his time. He had ideas for robots and solar panels and planes and helicopters and parachutes and computers. And this is like 500 years ago, 600 years ago. It wasn't just his art, but everything else. And it is expression, it is art, and everything else. It's that part, and I think that's a very human thing.
Mm,
You know, I think sometimes we get caught up with the corporate world.
yeah,
We forget the human or the artistic side, because everyone's artistic to a point,
yeah,
you know, kind of thing. And it's just having that ability to let it, to really, you don't need to be a professional actor or professional dancer. You can go to classes and do it for fun.
mm,
You know,
yeah,
like I'm when I was young enough and I had the energy, when I was in the clubs dancing, I didn't care what anyone. I was just enjoying myself. You know, so it's. I think like it is part of our humanity in lots of senses.
mm,
If either to going back like during the pandemic, good thing we had streaming services. you know,
yeah,
so that's what I think. It's just it's a build up, and yeah, it's that part of us. It's like every culture has a form of theatre performance all around the world. There isn't no culture that doesn't have that.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we all find ways, not always the same way, but different ways. And yeah, like I said, I think sometimes we do get caught up in the corporate and the making the money and getting the status, and people not willing to do something if there's no money involved. There's sometimes it's not about that. I mean, of course, we all need money. We've got to pay bills, like saying that, but yeah, like you say, sometimes we just need to find something that you're passionate about and something that you enjoy doing and that
mm,
you want to do. And even if you don't become some big time famous whatever, just the fact that you enjoy doing it and you have a passion for it makes it worthwhile.
mm,
And yeah, I think sometimes we lose sight of that a little bit, or maybe even more than a little bit. But yeah, more creatives and less corporates. but speaking of creative and I guess corporate as well, I mean, you moving into well, I guess not moving into, but says starting directing films now.
Mm.
So for yourself, there's been actors in the past that have transitioned into directing. Do you feel that that makes, I don't know if better is the right word to use, but do you feel that that informs your directing in a way that had you just gone straight into directing, would do?
I think, like I said before, my education in this industry was very much, a lot of it was self taught, a lot of it was watching documentaries, going to classes, learning. And the same with the directing, it's watching stuff on YouTube and like the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable and everything else, and learning through that. But as an actor, it's and this is a kind of new side to me. You know, it's something I always want to do. So the last few years, when I've been working as an actor, I've been doing uh, being a runner on a film set. I've done being help, camera operator, all those little other jobs, and learning around. And when I'm like when we're on set, you got your hours, so you watch and you learn from people. You look around and see what they're doing. As an actor, it helps because I can see both sides of the lens. You know,
Mm,
I can see the technical side and I can see what the actor wants. And so when I did, so the film that I just released on my YouTube channel is called The Little Guy Alpha, and it's based on a series of films called The Little Guy that a friend of mine, Sasha Lari, created, and with his friend Dylan. And it is very influenced by anime and manga, and it's
yeah.
about this little guy and these little adventures. So I had an idea for it, and Sasha's like, "Cool, why don't you write it?" All right, so I write a script. You know, he said, "Why don't you direct it?" Like, what? What? And then so I did it and jumped into it, and I storyboarded and everything. And we were going to do it just before the pandemic. Then the pandemic happened, and everything froze for nearly 2 years.
Mm,
So when I came back to London, we kind of jumped back on and hit the ground running and get the process started again. And it's I, I'm influenced not just by science fiction, but I like westerns and I love dramas. I like detectives. I love all these different genres. So when I was doing the film, there's little moments, little like that's my sort of Hammer horror homage. You know,
yeah.
that's like, oh, he's walking like kind of like a western kind of feel to it. You know, certain shots, certain angles. You know, that's like these moments. So the technical side there. And then when I was talking to the actors, because I know how it feels to be on the other side, to get them to that place where it's like, cool, that's it. Like, can you do it like this? Can you do it bit change it like that? Great. Can you come from this angle this time? I'm gonna do it from this way. Does that make sense? It's like, so
Yeah.
you just learn and you just like you cut your teeth in the process. You're learning and you're learning because there was a particular scene that I wrote, and we didn't get a chance to do it the way I wanted it. But I was like, okay, we still want the scene. Okay, we use this instead. Exactly the same concept, but we're just changing it a bit, and it worked. You know, you learn on the job, kind of thing, and that's the point. That was a massive learning. It was just an amazing experience. It was a really great experience, funny experience. You know.
Yeah, I did watch the little guy Alpha just before the we
Oh, you
started
did?
talking actually. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
um, And I mean, when you just mentioned about sort of anime influences,
Mm.
I'm thinking back to, and I'm like, yeah, I think I could see some of that, especially like
Mm.
when he's shaking a hand, he's squeezing a hand,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and the blood and that kind of
yeah,
thing. And you mentioned about sort of the way he's walking is when he gets somebody walks away.
yeah.
I mean, I thought that it was a kind of an interesting concept, this
Mm.
idea of these going on the day. I mean, I guess it was a blind day or something like
Yeah.
that. Maybe they met online or
But,
something. And he gets there, he says nothing. She's late, he says nothing, and it's like, okay. But she did say something I thought was interesting though, where she said, I guess you're more. She said to him, "You're more of a conversationalist online."
yeah,
And that kind of struck me, and I guess we'll maybe find out how deliberate that was, because
yeah,
like I feel like there is definitely a difference between how we speak online and how we speak in real life. And
mm.
sometimes, when we're online, we can be like, Superman or whatever. We could be
Yeah,
anybody,
yeah,
and you meet people in real life, and then maybe our introversion shows a little bit
yeah,
too much, and we're maybe not as vocal. And I know that certainly happened to me at times where I could be online and be da 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 da, and then you
yeah.
get in real life, you start talking to people, and I'm usually the quiet one in the corner. you know. So yeah, I mean, is that something that's based on? I mean,
So the character, so it's like I said, it's based, but there's about several other films
yeah,
in this saga, and the little guy doesn't speak in any of them.
okay,
He doesn't speak. It's just his presence and everything around him, you know, kind of thing. And Sasha and Dylan, they got massive influence from like Tarantino, and they're the anime as well.
yeah,
So if you get a chance to watch it, it's on Sasha Lari's YouTube channel, and you can see all the rest of those, and you can see the influence that. So when I wrote it, the comical dark comedy of, because Sam, who plays the little guy, is quite a very short gentleman. He's just under 5 foot, and I got Frankie, who's a friend of mine, and she's just like quite very tall. So I like that contrast
yeah,
in a comical style, as you see in the film. And I just wanted that sort of humor there. And I don't want to go too much in spoilers because
well,
I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But
yeah.
there's an
Go check it out.
aspect. There's an aspect where you have Jacob comes in, interrupts the date, and he's this big guy, and you see what happens afterwards when you watch the film. So it was that sort of interestingness, and it's very. Do you know what? It's very interesting that you've mentioned that about people online compared to what they are in real life.
Mm,
How that's your takeaway on that line.
yeah,
It's pretty cool actually. It's like, okay, I didn't see it like that, because the humor is, oh, he talks so much online. They've been chatting for, I don't know, a couple of weeks,
yeah.
right? And then they see each other and he's just quiet, you know.
Okay.
So I like that. I never
Um,
really thought about that
yeah.
in that sense.
I mean, I guess to be fair, that's the first little guy that I've seen. Well, first and so far, only little guy that I've
Mm,
seen. That perhaps if I'd known more of the context of why he didn't speak,
mm,
I might not have thought that. But yeah, that's kind of how it came to me as somebody just watching this particular iteration of the little guy. That you have the way people are online is completely different to how they are in real life, and
mm,
also kind of remind me of another short movie that I saw years ago. I don't remember what it's
mm.
called right now, but it was these couple that met online and then they meet in real life and they struggle to communicate with each other. Then they both get their laptops out and start talking through the laptops while they sit in the same room. But yeah, I think there is, at least in my experience anyway, there does seem
Mm.
to be a difference between sometimes, or even a lot of times, of how we are
Yeah.
online versus how we are in
Well,
real life. And
that's the thing. It's like say being on set or at work or something like that, and people are on their phones a lot of the time, like messaging and stuff like that. And like I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty
mm,
of that as well. But like you don't talk to people around you you're working with and stuff. There's time on sets, as you probably know. It's like sometimes you're not allowed your phone on set
Yeah.
because they don't want the photos being taken or anything. So they're put in a box. So you end up having conversations with people, and you get some great. I've been on set and had some really deep conversations with
Mm.
people like practically strangers, but we just have this deep connection for this day and have these deep conversations. And it is funny, like people like on their phone, or somebody sending something to a friend, like, oh, I'll send you this message. Oh, that's really funny, ha ha ha. But they're doing it on their phones, not actually saying it to themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Send
I like
send
that.
group
And
chat.
thank you for
Yeah.
watching. I really appreciate that.
Nah, that's so good, so good. I saw the we sent that message. You said, like, yeah, I was uploading my movie, the little guy, to the YouTube, and so I kind of thought, okay, is that a hint? So it's like, is that like a nudge, nudge? But
No,
yeah, let
no,
me go.
no, 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 no. It
But
was
you know,
like,
yeah, it was a cool movie. And well, thank you for making it. Really, I mean,
thank you.
it's just sharing your creativity with the world. It's an awesome thing. And speaking of creativity with sharing, you mentioned earlier that you did the Uber Eats advert,
Mm.
and so you and I have another thing in common. Is that you did an Uber Eats advert, and I used to do a few Uber Eats deliveries. So,
Mate,
um,
those bags, I was like nearly hitting the crew because my
yeah,
spatial awareness,
they're quite
like I
hefty. I mean,
was like just trying to like nearly hit the camera crew and stuff like that. I was like trying to get my spatial awareness
yeah.
on that.
I mean, the bag that I had, well, have rigs, I still got it. Is I think I mean, I think it's probably a bit smaller than the one that you had. It looks to me
Mm.
from just from the eyes, it looks probably a bit smaller. It's
Yeah,
still a big bag, but it's probably
yeah,
maybe a little bit doesn't go out as far back.
yeah.
But yeah, even that, you just kind of got to be careful. It's just cycling places because you strap everything down on the inside, all the drinks and
Mhm.
things like that. But you still got to be careful if you go over a bump or whatever. And I
Yeah.
would say though that those bags can be quite surprising at how good they are. Like I remember one time I turned up at this person's place, and I'm getting off my bike, and it was like a kind of slope going down. So I
Yeah.
was getting my bike, I ended up slipping and I fell.
Oh.
And I got back up, and these guys got drinks and all kinds of stuff on the inside. And I got back up, I'm literally at this guy's like doorstep, thinking, "Oh shit, 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 shit," right? Because I
Yeah.
just almost messed up his food at the last second. But I look inside, and it was fine. I was like, okay, there's like maybe a tiny little spill somewhere, but
Yeah.
it was mostly all still together. So I was like, I don't need to tell him that I just slipped.
Yeah.
I don't need to say what just
Just
happened. Like
put it there
he gave him the
and just
food,
walk
he
away.
took it out, he was happy with it. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't need to say nothing. But yeah, I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised because I
Well,
buckled when I got off the
yeah.
bike. You know what I mean? I was like,
Sometimes just don't say anything. Just like, yeah.
yeah. So I was looking inside, like, you know what? These bags are pretty good. These bags are
It was
pretty good.
interesting. It was like I needed help to get it to somebody to like take it off me because it was it's the biggest. It's one of the biggest things,
So,
biggest jobs I did,
mm,
and I don't watch Love Island, so so you had the audition process,
mm,
and I was doing for something else, auditioning for Uber Eats, but it was for different thing, and the director said, "Can you do this?" and said my lines, and I did it really deadpan. He laughed, he liked it, and then did it again. So I did it twice, and then the second time it was with there was a group of actors that I was doing the scene with, and they had more people in the room.
mm.
So I'm thinking, great, I've got to do this with a whole bunch of actors and more people, and it's all the executives and like top people. Like, oh god, don't mess this up. So I did it, and then and eventually I got the job. Got on set, went to costumes, told it, go here, cool, got that. they say, "Oh, you got a great scene with Caroline. You got a great scene, Caroline." And in my head, I'm thinking, "Who's Caroline? Who's this Caroline person you're talking about?" Because I don't really watch the show, so I don't
Yeah.
know anything about it. And then they went on set, and you'll appreciate this. They said, "Do you want to go to the green room?" Yeah, all right, I'll go to the green room. Just chill. And then we got onto the actual to do the scene, and saw Miss Flack, Caroline Flack, and I was, oh, it's her. Oh, this is like the
Well, you said it out
realization.
loud.
It's like, okay, this is going to be slightly more bigger than I thought it could be. And then the response afterwards was really lovely because on Twitter, everyone's saying Ravi this, Ravi that. You know, even the Love Island, who was the biggest winner, it was like a couple of people, not the actual, I don't know if you want to call them cast or contestants from the show, but it's like the other people. And I was in that little group. I was like, oh, wow, that's really lovely. So that was a really like an amazing experience to feel to that. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do you watch Love Island now, or has it converted you, or?
No, 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 it's fine. It's like it's like okay, cool. It's not my cup of tea. Now, if they did like a Star Trek Love Island, then maybe or Star Wars.
Yeah. You know what? Star Wars Love Island actually could work because like there's definitely like a few people in Star Wars I could think of that probably should go together. I feel like I can matchmake a few people in Star Wars, like like within Disney ones, for example, like Ray and Finn. No, no. Ray is clearly not interested in Finn. Finn's been like chasing after her for like all like 3 movies. She's not interested, but Finn and Jana, I think that can work. I think that
Ooh,
could work. So yeah,
yeah,
Finn and Jana.
yeah,
That's that's
yeah,
that's how I'd put together.
yeah. Do you know what though? And this is us being really geeky now, which I really
Yeah.
like. Jana, I don't know if this is official or not because I keep being conflicting. Jana was meant to be Lando's daughter that was missing.
I can believe that. I can believe that. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, she because they were all taken from when they were kids, right?
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
don't know who their parents are anyway.
yeah,
And Lando, well, like I say, charming dude. He's been
yeah,
around. um. So yeah, I think that's and especially at the end of Rise of Skywalker, where
mm,
she walks up to her and she says, "Where are you from?" He's like wait, this thing's
yeah,
something system. I can't remember right now. But
yeah,
she's like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "I don't." He's like, "Let's find out together, kid." And they kind of
yeah,
presumably go off around the universe
yeah,
together.
yeah,
So they kind of have that kind of moment that suggests
yeah,
that they have a connection that goes
yeah,
beyond just a meeting randomly at this
yeah.
resistance, thing.
Which was
So
quite
yeah,
nice. I like that. There's yeah. So I mean, I'm trying to think else. Who would you God meet up? That's interesting. That's a whole.
yeah. Well,
That's like
C-3PO and R2D2 are clearly already together. I think they've
like
already found
bickering.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, I
yeah.
don't think they realize it yet, but they're clearly all just they're together.
They've been good together for like what 40 odd years, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like yeah. I think like with the new ones, like Poe and his ex
Oh,
in the
Zori.
yeah,
Zori, yeah. I don't
yeah,
know though. I mean, I think they're more of a short term thing. They're
yeah,
like they could be together, have lots of fun, but they need to split up like a week later, like no more than a
yeah,
week. If they go more than a week, they're just gonna be arguing. They're gonna
yeah,
just at each other.
yeah.
They could be arguing over the smallest things. Like no more than a week, and it's like have your fun, split apart. But yeah, yeah.
If Chewbacca wasn't married, I don't know
Okay, yeah. Chewbacca.
who
Who could put Chewbacca with if he wasn't already married? I don't know. He might be a tough one because he's like 200 something years old. Because he's somebody
yeah,
with that kind of maturity,
yeah,
and Yoda's passed away, so not him.
no.
I don't know. He might be a
No.
hard one to match
Maybe
up
try to
actually.
find Yaddle.
Yaddle.
Do you not know Yaddle was the female kind of same species of Yoda in Phantom Menace?
Okay. What Phantom Menace? There's a female Yoda, a female
Yeah,
Yaddle.
yeah. The character was Yaddle, but it's the same species as Yoda, the
In fact,
female.
oh, okay, I've forgotten that then.
Ah, there's a deep dive
So
there.
Yaddle's the name of the character,
Yeah,
and Yaddle is the female version of female version. That's my sexism coming through now. The female species
yeah,
of Yoda,
yeah,
of Yoda species.
yeah.
Okay, um, who is she in? Which character was that though? Like,
She was in the council. You can see in the Jedi Council.
okay, so she's
She was
not
only
speaking.
one in the first episode. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I think there's some comics about her. But yeah,
Okay, no, I guess would have seen it, but then maybe just didn't notice
yeah,
and now since
yeah. I
forgotten.
was gonna say. Do you like the Mandalorian?
I did. I haven't watched the new series yet, season three.
Okay.
Not watched that yet. But the first two seasons I really enjoyed. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that by the time season three came out, maybe it's because there was quite a long break or
Mm.
all kinds of things. I
Yeah.
wasn't really overly excited to get to season three. That's part of the reason why I
Yeah.
haven't watched it yet. I think it's almost done now, and it seems there's been a lot of good opinions about it coming
Mm.
out. I haven't seen any spoilers, but just general good opinions.
It's
Um, so yeah,
I've
I might try and
seen
get to it once it's done.
I've seen most of it. Yeah, I've seen it. Not until we got the last two episodes coming up. Um, that came out. I think the last one came in America came out last night or something. But it's good. I enjoyed it. It's interesting what they're trying to do because there's so much backstory that's from the animated Clone Wars
Mm,
and the Rebel series that they're integrating into the Mandalorian. So if you haven't watched it, you could get lost.
okay.
But luckily, I've watched them, so I kind of got an idea where they're going with. There's quite a few detours to the main storyline. It's fun. It's some great stuff. I won't ruin it for you. I won't say any more, but there's definitely some interesting aspects
Mm,
of it. You know.
yeah, I think with the Star Wars series, like Book of Boba Fett, kind of like for me, you know,
Yeah,
it started off pretty okay, but and then he
I
was
think that
barely in it for the last like half. It's like it turned into the Mandalorian season 2.5
yeah,
in that last
yeah.
part of it. I was like, mate, what's going on
I
here?
think that with the book of Boba, when you saw that last shot of him going to Jabba's palace, killing Biff Turner, and then just sitting on the throne, and Fennec
Mm,
is
yeah,
just there, and it's like, oh man, this is gonna be like badass. This is gonna be like he's taken over from Hut,
yeah,
but the character changed a lot, and that's a good thing sometimes
mm,
because like we can go to Luke and stuff like that. Every everyone is like it's been 30 odd years or whatever. So this character, not everyone's going to be the same
yeah, indeed,
because you need character development. It can't be the same there. It gets boring. You need, kind of like ups and downs to keep that character going. But with Book of Boba Fett, I think they tried something and some of it didn't work. I mean, there's some cool bits. You got the bit at the end with the Rancor coming in and doing his
yeah.
King Kong moment, you know, kind
That
of thing.
rank was
That
cool.
was that was like there's like, oh, this is what I want to do. This was let's put Rancor and let's play with it. And the Star Wars sandbox is just so deep and vast,
Mm,
you know, like Tatooine, and it's just they can pick so much out of it. But I think what they're doing in with the new series, it's interesting. Because we had all these books back in the day when they had all these characters. They're trying that, but yeah, I think Book of Boba Fett was enjoyable, but it wasn't as what we all hoped for. And I
mm,
think if they do Book of Boba Fett 2, they're gonna probably push back and just rejig things around. and be a bit more of him being like a mercenary kind of
Yeah.
thing, which we kind of wanted.
Yeah. I think with I mean, Book of Boba Fett, from my understanding though, is set after episode 6. Return, not after, sorry,
No,
during, I guess, really, because it was
no, it's
after.
after Return of the Jedi. It's set 5
Yeah,
years.
it's 5 years
So it's-
after. Okay,
yeah, so
okay,
the
yeah,
whole
because it's
Mandalorian bit is about, I think, 5 years. Or was it 10 years? No, because I think it's several years after. Anyway, it's several
okay
years kind of thing.
because yeah, he was in the was it the I forgot what it's called, but he got swallowed, and
Scarlet Pit.
yeah, this saw that, and apparently he survived that somehow.
Yeah.
Comes out and he's about 30 years older for some reason. He's just okay. It's a thing. maybe Sark Pit ages people. Who knows, right?
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I mean, it is interesting what they did with him. I mean, because you got to think of it, it kind of does work out that if Boba Fett would have been looked that way if he was, because when Attack of the Clones and he was like 10, and it's been from Attack of the Clones to where it must have been like 30 plus. So he would
Yeah,
have aged, and then the Silent Pit might have made him feel, might have
yeah,
affected his body and stuff. Because apparently there's bits where he's like a bit scarred up. It's interesting because in the books, in the comics before this, there's a very similar thing he does kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting because what Dave Filoni's, what they all do, and they're all kind of picking things from the legends and then
yeah.
recreating it for this incarnation to Star Wars. What they're doing. So yeah, I think it's like what I was going to say. Let's flip it to you. What sort of stuff do you like?
Well, how long you got? What so? I mean, yeah. I guess. I mean, like, there's low. I've an interest in a lot of different things. I guess my main interest, though, um, in terms of say geeky stuff, would be things like video games, sci-fi movies.
Mm.
I'm big into like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And a lot of the sort of comic book movies as well. Star
Yeah,
Wars, I still have love for, even though they're not always have doesn't always have love for me. But that's
yeah,
fine. It's a one-way relationship. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I'll say that. Yes, just kind of just stuff like that. I guess it all kind of broad to kind of get more broader things like sort of action sci-fi is kind
yeah.
of where a lot of my kind of interest lies, and things that kind of fall basically or generally within in
Yeah.
that action sci-fi stuff. You know,
There's, I mean, like, I
and
mean,
violence. I like
we
violent stuff
like,
too.
pun.
Violence, anything violent. I like violence. Just
I mean, we haven't
gory
even
violence.
really
The gorier
touched.
the better.
We haven't really touched like Marvel or DC and stuff.
Mm,
Like, I love Marvel. I mean, my first love is DC because like my first comic that I ever got was a Batman comic. I remember
yeah.
my dad. It's like, oh, let's get this, get that, and DC fanboy at heart all the time. But I still got enough love for Marvel. Like Stan Lee is the goat. He
Mm,
like what he created and everything is just incredible. That Marvel universe and like I think what they've done the MCU is been incredible. I think that the whole Infinity Gauntlet saga is probably one of the best, some of the best films ever, and
yeah, for sure.
Endgame is probably the best um, culmination of a saga
Yeah.
cinematically.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Like, it was incredible what they did from Iron Man to Endgame.
Yeah,
And sure, not every movie's a masterpiece. I get that. That's fine. It doesn't. They don't need
yeah,
to be. But just the story that they told, and it's not the first connected universe. I think, to be fair, it's not the first connected universe, but certainly, at least in my mind, the first to do it on such a massive scale like that.
yeah,
And to have I mean, what was it, like 15 movies or something over
Yeah,
a 10-year period or 10, 11-year period?
yeah,
Or maybe even 20 movies, I think. But it's quite a lot of movies over that
yeah,
period. And the fact that they had this idea, and I'm sure things changed along the way, but they pretty much, had this idea throughout this
yeah,
series of movies over these years that they created and crafted and,
yeah.
adapted where necessary, but generally did what they needed to do. And then by the time
It,
it all
it,
came to the end, it was just incredible.
yeah, it was amazing. I mean, when I heard Chris Evans was going to be Captain America, I was like, the Human Torch.
Yeah.
It was like, what? And now he embodies.
He's Captain America.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
Captain America.
Steve Rogers.
Yeah, Steve Rogers. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
It's pretty much an extension of him, but it's just so perfect because
Mm.
that would have make and break. Like
Yeah.
like when John Farrell cast him as Tony Stark. Like Robert Downey Jr. career was very up and down.
Yeah.
You know, he
Yeah.
was going for a lot, and there was like a risk, but it all helped him to be that part of the story, and it just everything, like all of it. I mean, it's there's a lot of characters of the Marvel that I'm not familiar with. I grew up like my favorite is like Wolverine.
Right. Yeah.
One of my favorite Spider Man. Yeah, like, and because like, in the comics he's my height. He's like 5'2" kind
Okay.
of thing. And then when Hugh Jackman was cast, like, what? He's too tall, you know. But he's brilliant. He's the best.
Yeah. He's owned
Uh,
that role over the years. He really
yeah,
has.
and so like with what all those films have done, all the characters to bring it back, and like Endgame was, you could have easily cut an hour from the film and it still would have been great. But all the cameos, all the people in, all the
Mm.
little story threads, all the little like nods through all that saga
Yeah.
was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And um, like I was saying with I think we talked about my own podcast, the Geek Monty.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did a tribute to Chadwick Boseman after he sadly passed away,
Mm.
and like I think when it comes to like Black Panther was amazing. Like it's just like powerful kind of thing, and I think you could all feel it. It was like it was great when I was going to cinema. You know, all these people in sort of African clothing, like traditional African clothing, come and see Black Panther and just watch it and just seeing like what it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and everything else they've done. They've been great. Now, when I say this, I still am a DC fan. I still enjoy it a lot.
Gotta make that clear. Gotta make that clear. I'm still DC. I'm still
Yeah,
DC.
yeah. Film wise, I think with DC's had its ups and downs.
Well.
To say,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess fair. That's
yeah,
fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
like it's ups and downs. But I'm quite intrigued and see how James Gunn does, how he takes over and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
indeed. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does because yeah, DC. I mean, it has been kind of a mess over the last sort of few years, and I think a big part of that is it feels like they tried to just copy Marvel with the whole cinematic
Mm,
universe thing, and they tried to do it at a point where Marvel had already been doing it for I think about 5 or 6 years at that point, and they were
mm,
playing catch up, and they were trying to do so much to get to where Marvel are, and it's
yeah,
like you need more time if you're going to do something like that, and they were just
yeah,
trying to do so much so soon, and it just wasn't working. And of course, on top of that, you got all these different creative ideas, and
yeah.
then it had other sort of personal issues that happened, and
Mm,
it just wasn't working. But I feel like DC for me has always excelled when they just did their own thing.
mm,
Like Wonder Woman, for example. That's kind of it's part of the
yeah,
connected universe, but
yeah,
it was a separate film, and it
yeah,
excelled in its own space. Or the Batman, that's just
yeah.
completely separate from the
That
whole thing
the
anyway,
Batman
and that
is,
just
yeah.
brilliant.
I mean, I think what got me excited is that you saw the great detective, like Batman as a detective, which I don't think you've really seen in any of the films.
Yeah.
You've seen
Yeah.
hints like the original Tim Burton, like Michael Keaton, like it's like he's trying to figure out what the Joker is trying to do, or in Bale in Dark Knight Returns when he's figure out what the bullets are and everything else. But this one, he's a detective. He's trying to figure out what the Riddler's doing, which I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
anyone who's not
But
seen it.
it's a
But it's,
great film.
yeah,
It's long. I know a lot of people don't like long
mm,
movies. Or I
yeah,
get it. It's hard to
yeah,
pay that much attention for like what's nearly
yeah,
3 hours, but it's
yeah,
worth it. It really is, and that's coming from the Marvel guy. It's worth it. It's a brilliant film.
yeah.
I've only seen it once in the cinema, so I definitely need to
Mm,
make time to watch it
watch it
again.
again.
That it's
Yeah,
available on things and stuff. But yeah, it was the brilliant. I mean, I look like Robert Pattinson. When he got
yeah,
announced as Batman, there was a lot of like comments about, oh,
hmm
he can't do it. He's Edwin Cullen, and
yeah,
he what can he do? I remember thinking to myself, what, this makes sense. First he was a vampire, now he's a bat. It just made
yeah,
sense to me. It
yeah.
just
It's
made
just
sense,
logical. It's
right?
absolutely there's
You know,
so much logic to that, and yeah, I was very intrigued. I was like, give the guy a chance.
yeah, indeed,
Don't.
indeed,
I know he's done a lot of independent films and like not mainstream stuff. So there's going to be a point where the casting director and the director says like, that's that guy.
yeah,
But this incarnation of Batman, and this is what you see. That's why I always think like with the comics, as you know, there was all these in DC's Elseworlds where alternate worlds kind of thing.
yeah,
If you watch the films, these are alternate Batman, Superman, stuff
yeah.
like that. Like the other night, I actually went to cinema and saw Superman the movie,
Oh, the original
the
'78
original
movie.
one. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
and that was amazing to see on the big screen. To
Yeah.
see Christopher Reeves, it was yeah, just extraordinary. And hearing like Marlon Brando's tones around the cinema and John Williams' score, and it's giving you chills
Mm,
and stuff like that. Going to the future with Man of Steel, I thought it was a great film, brilliant, but it didn't make me feel like I could fly like the original one because it was
mm,
quite a somber film, kind of thing. And with Batman versus Superman and stuff like that, I get that they're trying to be different to Marvel because Marvel's got a bit more lighter
yeah.
in a lot of its context, but you need that little bit of levity. And I think with James, because I'm looking forward to what's coming, like the Flash, that's coming out with Michael Keaton back and Christian, not Christian, but Batfleck, Ben Affleck coming back, and all that sort of stuff. So, and then you got Blue Beetle, which is quite an interesting character, and then
Mm.
you got Aquaman at the end of the year, and then next year you got the Joker too, and then start
Yeah,
with
Blue Beast was a character I don't believe I've even heard of before they announced the movie, but I know it's
mm,
the guy who's in Cobra Kai
yeah,
Zolo. I'm blanking on his last name, Miranda.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm sure I got that wrong. I'm sorry. I ain't trying to disrespect the guy, but he's a good young actor, and I really liked him
mm,
in Cobra Kai.
yeah.
That's a brilliant series,
Oh,
and he was
Cold Cut's
amazing in
classic,
it.
like yeah,
So yeah, looking forward to
yeah.
it for that reason. Even though I don't know anything about the Blue Beetle, I did see the trailer. The
It,
trailer did look pretty
it's
cool.
I read the comics with the Blue Beetles. I read with it was Justice League International back in the day, and it was a different character, but this is a different version of the Blue Beetle. So it's got,
Okay,
but it's been around. The characters have been around about 15 years, maybe. So it's been around, but it'll be quite interesting to see. So but yeah,
indeed. But I think that might be a good place to start winding down. But before
mm,
we do, I do have
yeah,
one last question to ask you,
cool.
and it's perhaps the most important question that you will ever get asked in your entire life.
Okay,
And bear in mind, there's only one right answer.
okay.
Who is the who? Which actor portrayed the best Batman?
You know what? For me, it's still got to be Michael Keaton.
Michael. I mean, it's a good choice. It's a good choice.
Well, for me, it's I mean, swear to me is
Yeah,
really good. Do you
yeah,
know? His incarnation of Bruce Wayne and Batman is great. But for me, growing up, like I saw the Adam West, TV series back in the day, campy fun. It's great.
yeah.
But seeing Michael Keaton's Batman was the one that had the big. I had all the posters on my wall,
Mm,
you know, and everything else, and I had the comics and all that, everything else that was all the merchandise that came out. But I think Bell. I mean, apart from George Clooney, who's
yeah.
yours?
Well, Michael Keaton's Batman was really good, and I remember when that was coming out, and the style of it, and the kind of dark nature of it, and you look back at it now, and it's very sort of 80s, 90s, sure,
Mm,
but back then, being a kid at that time and seeing those posters and seeing those imageries, it was incredible. Like
yeah,
I hadn't even thought about Batman that much until you see. I mean, of course, I knew about Batman, but it
yeah,
wasn't really on my mind that much. And then you
yeah,
see that, and you're like, wow, I know everything about Batman now. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, that for me was probably, I'd say, the biggest kind of visual impression of Batman that really
yeah.
solidified Batman in my mind. But if I had to pick a, well, let me not say best. Let me not say best. I think that's a bit unfair. But let me say, because it's always going to be like debatable. But let me say my favorite Batman,
Mm.
and that has to be Adam West. That has to be Adam West, because
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it was campy and all that stuff. But dude, this man was like, he had like the lycra, he didn't have
Yeah,
no fake bulletproof nothing, he would punch people out, the words would come on the screen, pow, crunch, and till this day, he's the only Batman, or at least the only live action Batman, to beat up a shark. Like he's, he, he beat up a shark while hanging from a helicopter. And Robin came down and handed him the bat shark repellent. Nobody was
yeah,
flying the helicopter at this point. It just stays up in the air because it's Batman, right? He hands him the bat shark repellent.
yeah.
He sprays it and he blows up. And the
It
shark's
is
are biting his leg and he's punching.
is is oh man, that's yeah. I mean,
Oh, man.
uh, it yeah.
Oh,
That
man.
Batman
So,
the
yeah,
movie is that is such a classic,
it really
such a
is, man.
such a classic.
It's brilliant. I mean, I don't
And
know. I guess I mean I'm not that old, right? So I don't know how people felt about it at the time. I don't know if that was like supposed to be maybe more
it was
serious, or maybe
campy
or
because
it was
there's
a little bit of comedy,
I
but
sorry, I actually saw
oh,
something
sorry.
on Instagram or something, or maybe it was Facebook, where they interviewed the like Adam West, Jean Newmar, who was Catwoman, um, Caesar Ramon, who played Joker, and
Hmm.
I cannot think of it. He was in Rocky as well, but he was the Penguin as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking about Batman, and they're talking about the new Batman in 1989 because it's coming out. It said yes, yeah, yeah. This is really serious. We were campy and fun. We were like,
Okay, so you knew what they would
yeah.
get. Okay.
If I can find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah,
No.
it's an interesting like interview there. But
That just makes it better for me. If they wanted to be campy, they made it
yeah,
campy, and they
yeah.
went all out with
It's,
campiness, and it was
it's
brilliant.
here. It was the '60s, baby. It was '60s, and you had, and if you get a chance, when they're walking up, when they're walking up the building.
Oh
So
yeah,
they're
yeah.
yeah, they're walking up the building. It's like a rope, right? So like, sorry to spoil it for your listeners
Oh
and
no,
watchers.
that's fine. It was
It was like
1960s. It's
this.
fine.
So they're going like that.
Yeah,
The cameras turn around to make it look like they're going up the building,
yeah.
and, and they pretend to go. And they always had somebody come out of the window,
Right, right.
right? And it was always a big celebrity, and
Yeah,
like Sammy Davis Jr. or somebody like that, some big
yeah.
person from that time. And they were just like they was like having a little conversation whilst coming up to. They knew what it was. They knew it was like for kids, like really young kids. So yeah, you can't dismiss that classic
Yeah.
series. You know,
I think, and to be fair, I know people kind of look back on those sort of things now and just say, "Oh yeah, that was silly, whatever." But I mean, the truth is that if that didn't exist, you wouldn't have the Michael
no,
Keaton, and then you wouldn't have the Christian Bale Batmans, because that was, I mean, it wasn't the first ever Batman
no,
in live action, I don't think, but it was certainly
no,
like the first in a big way.
yeah,
And at that time, they did what worked at that time. You know, had that never existed, Batman 1989 would be completely different, because you look back at
yeah,
what they did and say, you know what, they did that. Let's do something different.
yeah.
And then it kind of goes from there. So yeah, it's all kind of like a
Each,
serial,
each,
just like
each
each informs
in
the
the
other.
comics, So you go back in the day. So we go from Batman, the original one, was quite. It was a little bit dark, and he did kill people. And then in the 50s, he went all sorts of sci-fi. In the 60s, it was all camp and
Mm,
like groovy baby and the big TV series. In the 70s, it went a bit more serious and a bit more darker. And then the 80s, you had the Frank Miller one where it was really dark. And then gradually over to the 90s. And then each period generation has its own incarnation of a Batman
mm,
kind of thing. And even like there's cartoons, which is as campy as that, and it's for little kids. And then you got slight older kind for slightly older kids,
mm.
or adults. So yeah, I mean, like I said, like Adam West, Burt Ward, that they were the dynamic duo.
Mm. Oh, speaking of animated Batman, actually, I don't know if you've seen this clip, actually, but Kevin Conroy, who did the voice of Batman
Oh,
for the animated series in the games, there was a
I met
video, I
him.
think.
I met him.
Oh, you met him?
Yeah, I got a photo with him.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, I think it was IGN that posted a clip of him where it was him reading Christian Bale's lines from The
Yes.
Dark Knight. Oh, you seen it?
I
Yeah,
think I've seen it.
and
Yeah.
boy, oof,
Yeah.
man, man.
Yeah. It was. He was like, for me. I would say that's probably the best incarnation of Batman was the animated series.
Mhm.
For me, that's really more akin to the comics. For me, and I think a lot of people would feel the same. The films are amazing. You can't dispute what they've
Yeah.
done with the films, and everyone's like I said, in an incarnation. But the animated was probably one of the best. You know,
Yeah. How did you meet Kevin Conroy? How did that happen?
I was so in a sense, there's a website called the Fan Carpet, which interviews people and they have fans for people. And Mark runs the the site, and they do interviews and film premieres and such. And there's
Mhm.
Comic Con, and we got press pass for that for the week of Comic Con, and Kevin Conroy was there, and I interviewed him. He remembered me because we had the pass, so we can go into the back and just leave our stuff, and just so I bumped into it and say, "Is there any chance for a photo?" So yeah, sure. So I took a selfie, and he was such a lovely guy. God rest his soul.
Man, yeah, indeed. Man, but yeah, I mean, I didn't see much of the animated series, but I know him from Arkham Asylum, the
Yeah,
video game,
yeah,
and then Arkham City and Arkham Knight. Um, and yeah, I did see a little bit of the show, and I did see when they did the animated movie
yeah,
of the Killing Joke that he did with Mark Hamill. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no, that's Batman's voice. That really is. That is
yeah,
Batman's voice.
yeah,
And but it's going to take a lot to change the minds of people of Batman's voice. I'm not saying it
yeah,
can never be done. I'm sure there's
yeah,
somebody out there who's talented and passionate and everything
yeah,
else that's going to come and blow our minds at some point. But for now, oh, that
yeah,
is Batman's voice. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Oh man.
All right, dude, Jessen. Appreciate you coming through. Um, But actually, yeah, tell people a little bit about your own podcast, the
Yeah.
Geek Monty,
Oh, thank you.
because people should be listening to that as well,
Yeah, it's called
or
the
instead, you
Geek
know what I mean?
Monty. Look, we'll definitely will have you join us for our podcast.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thank
Definitely,
you. I'd
definitely.
love to do that.
So the Geek Monty was a kind of an idea I had for years, similar to you. Like I was just like, like I like all this stuff, and I've got friends who have interests in different fields of the geek stratosphere, and I was like, okay, I'd love to interview them and stuff like that. And gradually, like once again, it was just like I was planning to do it, and then the pandemic happened. So one of my best mates, Dwayne, helped me with the concept and like did some drawings and did some like the logo, and the pandemic happened, and it was like, oh great, and I went back home, and I said to Dwayne, it's like, sod it, we got technology, we got my laptop, we got the internet, let's just record ourselves and post it. So that's what we did, and we've been going for like nearly 3 years now, which is incredible to think. So it's called the Geek Monty. We do all the latest topics, like all the latest film news, and it's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we do deep dives. So we've done deep dives on Spider-Man, Black Panther, Batman, all the Batman films and stuff like that. So, and we've got more coming up this year. And I did an interview with a friend of mine, Amy Pimpleton, who played the voice of Gideon in the DC series Legends of Tomorrow, and who ended up being in the series. And she's a big West End star, and somebody I met when I was working front of house in the West End, and became friends ever since. So she's done a lot of stuff, and so we had a really good interview with her. And yeah, so it's the Geek Monty. Like I said, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On the Facebook, or what I normally do, I post all the trailers and all the latest film news and stuff like that, and then everything else. So you follow us, we follow you, and like I said, we're definitely gonna have to do a one with you, man, because this
Um,
has been a lot of fun. This has been a lot of
Looking forward
fun.
to it already, man. But yeah, no, I'd love to do that and talk to you guys about, well, just geeky stuff. You know,
Yeah,
clearly I like talking about geeky stuff, right? So
yeah.
I think that might be obvious by now. I like talking about geeky stuff, so yeah, definitely love to do that. And yeah, I'll drop some links in the description
Mhm.
of your podcast and where to find your socials and all that. So
Thank you.
guys, actually, if you're listening, it's in the description. If you're watching, I'm not pointing at myself, I'm pointing down the description. But yeah, Jessen, appreciate you coming through. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Yeah, thank you. And to everybody
No, thank
watching,
you.
pleasure, man. And yeah, to everybody watching and or listening, thank you for that. Until whenever, if ever, peace.
Take care. May the force be with you.
Oh, and also with you. I sounded well. No, is that right? And also,
Yeah.
yeah.